I would like to ask him to wear some.
No, do not call me anymore. It's none of my business. How am I supposed to record a lecture for the students now? Feeling completely broken. Oh, I'm gonna go nuts if I don't take my pills. Fuck. Where are my meds? Alright. Now I can go get the camera. This place is starting to look like a garbage dump rather than a store. Well, I hope I won't forget to press the record button. Let's move on straight to our deceased. I'm wondering how the new tripod is going to work. Just frame it properly and... oh, this should be fine. November 21st, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Hammond. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always worth having a look at the files before conducting the autopsy. That is where we can find all kinds of clues to what could have been. Well, who do we have here today? Found on the outskirts of a parking. The deceased is locally known as Old. The body was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matt. Found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station. Now we can get... oh, where are the damn gloves? Oh, must have left it in one of the drawers. Let's follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. We must follow the top-down rule. Perfect frame. Before we start searching for trace... voila! Now we move on to the next step. Trace search. We're going to need better... and that's perfect. Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell. There's nothing. People affected by homelessness most often die from accident. Unfortunately, while taking the photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death. There are frostbite marks all over the deceased's body, although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers. They can be recognized by the very specific... However... an old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is... What do we have here? Now let's check the level of muscle tension. This will allow us to establish time of death. Let's raise the deceased's hand. And then let go. The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance from the muscles will be. Let's grab a scalpel. You can boldly cut with the scalpel. It won't hurt him no more. We always start with the neck and move down towards the surface next. We separate the skin and prepare to remove the ribs. The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors. After removing both cartilage and bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The lack of organ congestion means that, although the deceased was cold, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death. We can eliminate freezing as the cause of death. The deceased smoked like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the... Now we need to go grab the syringe. At this point, we need to test the level of blood alcohol concentration. Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. We move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the vitreous. Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before running the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates. I myself am terrible. Damn it. There's something that's... Oh, and I was hoping to clock out early today. What was that? Where did it go? Yeah, it's definitely the fuses. Right goes first, left next. Voila! Where's that unbearable noise coming from? That's strange. I'm pretty sure I closed the window. Alright, let's see what we get. Where were we? Oh yeah, the blood alcohol concentration. Well, everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high. Hence the smell we're getting from the... Now let's... As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open. That's interesting. In addition to a large amount of gas... Oh, it couldn't have been suffocation, could it? Now we need to focus on the cardiovascular system, especially the heart. We take the organ and look it up and down, carefully. At first glance, the heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to Autopsy's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head. Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two. Remember, the skull, nothing. Anyway. We can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric, and the bumps between them are clear. So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the organ we're examining. Let's check its transection. Moving on to the incision. Remember, just one small fragment examined under the magnifying glass is enough to dispel or confirm our doubts. We then take the fragment of the brain to the tray, and, literally just as I initially suspected, we can rule the fatal accident out as well. Don't need this tool now. Same as we did while cutting a small organ, such as the trachea, we must perform a precise incision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the knife as if it was a stylus. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the report and preliminary death, and now it's all clear. The death was caused by suffocation. It went quite smoothly today. I'm about to get off. In order to bring the chest of our deceased back to its initial state, we sewed the deceased using the baseball stitch technique. I should probably get to that. I'm coming. This is Dr. Jack Hanman. Please leave a message.
Good evening. How are you? How are you? How are you?
What the f is that supposed to be? I'll finish the stitching and I'm getting the fuck out of here. What the fuck?